Good evening and welcome to tonight's show. I'm your host, Tina Dawson, the owner of True Blue Designs, and it is truly an honor to be before you this evening. Please like and share and let everyone know that we are on the air. We are streaming simultaneously on Facebook and our YouTube channel at True Blue Designs. Now, many adopt a leadership role at some point in their life, whether it be in a workplace, meeting, team project, or even in a social setting. Understanding common leadership styles can help you identify your own strengths and weaknesses and become a better leader as a result. People are motivated to work with leaders they can depend on who genuinely care about them, provide a solid and reliable foundation, and inspire hope for the future. Tonight's guest is someone I have known since 2011, and I've seen him grow as an effective leader. He's someone who is open to sharing his journey, and I truly thank him for carving out time in his busy schedule to inspire and motivate you, the viewers. Help me give a warm welcome to tonight's guest, Dr. Errick Farmer.
Thank you so much, Tina.
Hello, how are you?
It's great seeing you. 2011. Wow, didn't realize it's been that long.
Yes, it's been a long time.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you. Thank you. How's the family?
All is well with the family.
That
Um, you
is
know,
good. That is good.
COVID brought some challenges, but by the grace of the good man above, we are okay.
That is great. That is great. Well, I'm going to ask you to start by telling the viewers a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am Errick Farmer. I do have a doctor in front of me, but my friends know that doctors are my students that I teach. I'm a proud resident of Monticello, Florida, about 20 miles east. I'm sorry, yeah, east of Tallahassee, Florida. I am married with three kids. I have a host of brothers and sisters, and my mom was the breadwinner and matriarch of the family, and I give a whole lot of grace to her for really raised a good kid in some harsh times back then. And I also have a twin brother for those who may not be aware.
You have a you have a twin.
I have a twin. A lot of people would see us and
Yeah.
wouldn't believe it. See, Tina, all of this. Uh, my twin brother name is Derek, and he was probably one of the ones that inspired me to even start that journey of college. So I started just real quick. No one knows this. I don't think any of you know this.
Mhm.
I started college as a 25-year-old freshman, and
Really?
enjoyed it so much that I just kept going. And he was one of those ones that said, "Hey, you should try going to college." And so that's what I did.
So if he's your twin, who came out first?
He did.
He
So
did. So
as I
he's the
told,
older twin.
so I'm the baby. I'm the baby of the family out of six total brothers and sisters.
How many brothers and sisters?
I have three additional brothers and two sisters, and of course, my dad got some more, so I got plenty out there.
Yeah, I hear you. So, well, let's talk a little bit about. You said that you had started as a 25-year-old freshman and you kept going. So, let's talk about your journey through academia.
Wow. So again, started off as a 25-year-old freshman, decided I'd do this as take a couple classes during one summer. Was working full time in the retail industry, believe it or not, grocery store industry, and kind of look at it for an opportunity to make a complete change.
Mm-hmm.
So once I calculated how the time that it'd take me to finish, I said, wait a minute, I need to do this full time.
Mm-hmm.
I really took a leap of faith, quit that job, found me a part time job, and went to school full time.
Wow.
Went through the community college route. Didn't ever think I was gonna ever finish. And then went over to Florida State University to finish up my bachelor's degree. Finished up my bachelor's degree, sat out for a couple of years, and said, "Hey, I miss school." Started a master's program at Florida State, but didn't finish because I wanted something different. So I went over to FAMU,
Mm,
finished the master's there, and then I said, "Well, I miss school." I started a PhD program, an online program, and didn't really like it, and
mm-hmm,
quit that program, and then later on started the PhD program at Florida A&M University. So
mm-hmm.
that's my journey. I still say there's an opportunity to learn more. I'm looking forward to just really always learning.
Wow.
I've been accepted into a graduate certificate program that I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking at doing. And, I got people say, well, you got a PhD. What else you need? I just need the opportunity to continue to learn. And so that's
Right,
kind of, that's me all day. As long as I have an
right.
opportunity to continue to learn, I'm okay.
Yeah, and we should never be complacent because,
Correct.
like you said, you can always learn from the people around you, and then you can always stretch your knowledge.
Correct.
So, congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um, we were talking earlier about you worked in the business school.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I've been again very blessed. I would never say anything happens on my own, and we should never do that because there's someone in a higher authority that gives you the ability to do some of these things.
Hmm.
So I was working for the chief financial officer for in a specialized unit within the university. Um, and when I finished my degree, I went right into a teaching position in the School of Business and Industry at Florida A&M University. My first real teaching position, something that I would always cherish because it gave me an opportunity to teach students and see them grow.
Hmm.
And so I taught specialized courses in professional leadership development for about 7 years
Okay.
in the School of Business and Industry. I taught, um, started off really with juniors and seniors, and I just recently last semester still was teaching in the program, teaching the grad students and graduate professional development. Very rewarding experience. I love to see students grow. And when you're in the class, when you see them shake their head or you see them raise their hand and they get it, those are rewarding things. And I've been blessed to have plenty of students write me, email me, bring me cards just to thank me for just giving them, I say, nourishment in real world situation conversations that they probably needed. So I enjoyed every bit of it.
Wow. Excuse me. I got a little tickle in the throat.
It's okay.
Oh, trying to hold it. Okay. And then from there, take us on the journey.
Oh wow, blessed again. I had an opportunity to, a lot of times when you work hard and you do your job, people notice it. And I didn't realize that people were noticing that the work I was putting in the School of Business and Industry at FAMU, that I had an opportunity to apply for a job with as the associate dean for the School of Allied Health Sciences. And so when you think about my background, not really a science background or health related background, really what they was looking for was people to really lead um, the school and do some of the administrative work that's required to make sure the school functions appropriately. And so I had the pleasure of applying for the position and being hired as the associate dean for the School of Allied Health Sciences. So again, another blessing that I have to make sure that I share with others that hey, it wasn't me. It was me and some blessings that was restored upon me. So very, very proud about that. And again, always looking to do more.
And what are some of your roles and duties as the associate professor?
Associate dean, associate professor, really it's about administrative functions. Looking at the budgets, um, also assisting with classroom and management, teacher management, making sure um, contracts are provided in a timely manner, strategic planning, communication plan, retention plans and recruitment plans. So anything that really talks about the function of the organization or the school, that's really what I'm involved with. And there's a host of things I know I'm forgetting, but I'm really focused on making sure that the school runs effectively and efficiently. Uh, the key component of that for me is making sure that we also provide great customer service to our customers, which are our students, our parents, and our alumni.
Now, this makes a lot of sense
Mhm.
because we were talking before we got on live that I've known you since 2011. Um, what you just shared makes it very clear to me why, when I've seen you in a variety of different leadership positions, that, and I know it's not this word, I won't say easy, but it's almost effortless to you because you have the foundation. You have worked hard to get the foundation that allowed you to be successful in these variety of leadership roles. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how important it is that before you strive to be in big leadership roles, how important is it for you to A, work on yourself, and then B, work on those skills?
Oh wow! When you really put things in perspective, you have to understand that you know hard showing up is half of the work.
Right.
And I tell my students, you know, the way you're gonna pass my class is first of all by showing up,
Mm-hmm.
and that's in any job. Just showing up is part of it.
Right.
You have to put in the work. Growing up, again, as a humble person, I remember picking pecans and
Mm-hmm.
going and working hard to make sure I pick enough pecans and I can sell them to be able to go to the fair. If anybody on this call, they may not remember nothing like that. But in addition to that, we had a dog track in our city at one point, and I worked that dog track, walking the dogs and corralling dogs and putting the dogs up in cages and that was a part of um, showing up every day in the rain and the thunder and the heat. All of those things to me help give the foundation of working hard.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, I also had, what you don't know, I used to own my own janitorial company.
No.
So, and I believe that that was some hard work, um, but it was humbling work because
Mm.
those are the things that you have to do sometimes to make ends meet. So
Right.
I owned a company that allowed me to create my own contracts, build my own contracts, and do everything I need to do to make sure that business was succeeding. And so the core of anything that you do is showing up and working hard,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what job it is,
Right.
regardless of what job you do. You have to work hard for it because sometimes it's between surviving and not surviving, eating and not eating.
Right.
And so for me, I've always made sure that I worked hard as I can to 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 make sure what I need. And,
Right.
and and also, when I was in school, I had a son. I had a job. Had to go to school, had
Mm-hmm.
to study. And so all of those things play a very important role in your ethics, your work ethic, and just how bad do you want something.
Right.
I tell a lot of my students in class sometimes I always say, "Tell me what's your purpose."
Mm.
And at that point, as a young father, my purpose was, "Hey, I got to make this thing better for my son. I got to
Right.
make sure we both eat, and I got to make sure we eat better than we were eating yesterday."
Right.
So sometimes going out and just finding your purpose will help you understand how hard it is for you to work and what you need to do that.
Yeah, and I always I taught my children that your life is not about you. It's really about those connected to you. And
Hmm.
I tried to teach them that so they don't have a selfish perspective,
Correct.
even at a young age, that, when you do good or bad, it affects so many different people and not just yourself. So yeah, you're right. I've had those humbling stories myself, and um, that's why I'm so quick to give people grace and mercy, you know, because I remember my journey too. So yeah, I totally understand.
Great. Yes.
Well, um, you talked about your academic foundation and the things that you had um, went through in life and then in academia. All that prepared you for your leadership role in your fraternity. So let's talk about that.
Wow. 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 I came into the organization of some 17, 18 years ago, and really that's a short span for some of the things I've been able to
Yeah.
accomplish. But I'll say I haven't I didn't accomplish these things by myself. So
Right.
I think I want people to understand that I'm always going to say somebody else helped me along this journey because you can never do these things alone. Um,
Hmm.
so I came into my graduate chapter, small chapter. I think we started off with less than 5 members when I first came in. A line of one, um, a line of many.
and
After
for and for the viewers, Eric, and for the viewers, state the name of the fraternity and your current position.
Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. My current position is regional director for the Southern region, which
Okay.
includes the states of Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and the Bahamas, Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Okay.
So I came in the chapter, started off as chapter secretary, was in that position for it seemed like forever, moved to first vice, and then became the chapter president.
Wow.
We did some great things as chapter
Hmm.
president. During that time, I became first vice state director.
Hmm.
Um, took a chance to just run for the position and was able to get that position. Learned a lot in that position. I think somewhere during that time, I also became the chapter advisor for the Mu Epsilon chapter at Florida State University, where I still currently serve uh, in
Are
that.
you serious?
Yes, yes, I do. In addition to that, after that, I became the state director for Florida. Wow, we
Hmm.
did some great things in my 4 years as tenure. Um, we really grew. We really grew, maybe from 450 to 900. So doubled our membership in the time that
Wow.
in that position. Um, prior to me completing my term as state director for Florida, I was elected as the first vice regional director
Hmm.
for the Southern region. You know, didn't think I would ever, run for something like this, and still sometimes kind of like, wow, I did that. But we also was able to grow there. I
Right.
think we did some good things membership wise, and I think we're still doing some great things membership wise. And then became regional director immediately after Brother Roy Edmonds, who really um, showed me the ropes. Didn't show me all the ropes, I'll tell him. But that journey for regional director, was good. And then I just in April was reelected for a second term as regional director. So I thank the brothers in the Southern region and throughout for showing a little bit of love and a little bit of faith in me and allowing me to do this particular job, which I truly, truly, truly do love. We've done some great things. My journey, people recognized me for the work that I was doing. I had some great mentors, I believe, that allowed me to grow and understood what it takes for me to grow. And
Hmm.
people that truly just believed in me.
Right.
You can't do these things if people don't believe in you. And
That's
so it was important, you know, very, very important to get that going as I went through this journey. And I had so many people to help me along the way. So many people that I wanted to fall back on and say, how did I do and what can I do better?
right.
So I truly, truly, and truly love this organization, love my journey, and I actually love this position as regional director.
And how many people do you oversee as regional director?
Oh wow, we are the largest in the fraternity, a Phi Beta Sigma fraternity. So right now we're probably about 3,500.
3,500.
Yeah, and
Okay.
we look, if you're out there, we're looking to get more.
Okay. So you oversee 3,500
Yes,
people in your fraternity.
yes.
And then how many students are in your department?
We have the second largest student
Wow.
base. So we're about 1,300.
1,300.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, you oversee a lot of people.
Yes. Yes.
But you can do it. You've been doing it. So let me ask you this. When you had the opportunity to really think about and consider running for regional director, what was your thought process and what was some of your goals that
Ooh.
you wanted to achieve in acquiring that position?
Well, to be honest, when you think about it, it's kind of scary.
Mhm.
And then you think about what are the unknowns.
Right.
You know what you know, but what are the unknowns?
Hmm.
So as I went into it, I really was trying to focus on how can I build a stronger region? How can I create unity? How can I make sure that we are having successful programming? Make sure that we are having a strategic plan,
Hmm.
and really make it focus on goal setting.
Okay.
There's a lot of things intertwined in there. I wanted to, sometimes you get into these positions, you want to change the entire face of the entire thing, and I didn't want to try to do that, but I
Hmm.
did want to do some subtle changes just
Hmm.
to allow us to stand out a little bit. I didn't feel like the unity was there as well as we probably could be.
Hmm.
And so the one thing that I really focus on is how can we unify the region? What can we do to make sure that we are unified, um, and that we walk together, we talk together, and our goals are aligned. And so that's really that was the biggest focus for me. And then I'm a big customer service person. I think we talked about that
Yeah.
earlier. It's
Hmm.
very important for me that I find a way to build customer service
Hmm.
across our entire organization.
Right.
If someone calls me, texts me, email me, it's very important to me that I respond in a timely manner.
Hmm.
If I don't, my bad. But usually you're gonna get a response in a timely manner because customer service is important. You got to keep people happy. Now,
Yeah.
can I keep all of them happy? No, but it's important that I do my best to make sure I keep everyone happy as much as possible. That's really what I'm trying to do.
Okay. And then let's talk about, I'm going to go back a little bit. Your position as associate dean, associate professor, what were some of your goals when accepting that position?
Well, really the same thing. When you think about it, customer service to our students are important.
Right.
If I make one student mad or one parent mad, I make one alumni mad, I can potentially use a student. I can potentially lose funding. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I can potentially lose that support that's coming from that particular parent, are their alumni base. It only takes one person to tell somebody that you're not doing a good job, and it just kind of rolls down hill
Right.
after that.
Mm-hmm.
But more than the other thing that I really focused on, one of my prior jobs, prior when I used to work for the state of Florida, not the university, but the state of Florida,
Mm-hmm.
I used to be a policy writer. I wrote policy for child support enforcement, state
Are
of
you
Florida.
serious?
See, learn something new all the time. So as with um, my current position now, one of the things I really want to focus on is policy, not necessarily development,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes we follow practice instead of policy. And
Say,
so
say that again.
we follow practice instead of policy.
Mm.
And so I wanted to make sure in this position as associate dean that we understand policy
Mm-hmm.
and we operate based upon policy. And then with the current position at the fraternity, um, even as a state director of Florida, one of the things I want to do is make sure that we create policies
Right.
that allow us to operate effectively and efficiently. Because sometimes we just do things just because that's the way it's been done.
Right.
but we have to make sure that we follow some type of policy or some type of document, a
Mm-hmm.
standard operating procedure document that allows us to get things done. Otherwise,
Yeah.
we're just making up stuff as we go. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm,
I had
I'm
someone.
I'm a process person, you know.
Yeah.
I'm that person where if I got to draw it out on a board or write it down and make sure that I'm following step one, step 1A,
Mm-hmm.
two, 2B, 2C, and that way you don't have any issues at the end of the day.
Yeah. I operate the same way. I had someone to tell me one day that just because that's the way it's always been doesn't mean that it's right.
Mm-hmm. That
And
is
that has
correct.
stuck with me. He told me that in 2013,
Yeah.
and that has stuck with me,
Mm-hmm.
all this time. Just because that's the way it's always been,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean that it's right.
You are so correct.
And I wanted to ask you both of those that same question for both of the different positions so that the viewers can see that your process is the same in both arenas,
Oh
right?
yeah,
You're serving two different types of your customer base is two different types of people,
correct.
but you're still using the same philosophy to serve
Yes.
both sets of people.
Right. I want people to understand for the fraternity, it doesn't just mean the brothers in
Mm-hmm.
the fraternity. You know, I'm trying to establish partnerships and corporate partnerships and
Mm-hmm.
vendor relationships and all those things about customer service and being responsive to their needs are just
Mm-hmm.
as important. You know, I don't want to lose an opportunity to miss out on some type of partnership because I'm not being responsive to my customer.
Right.
And so it's important for me, just as important for a parent or a student, to respond timely with information that's not going to take them to somebody else to ask for a question, to answer the question. You know, I don't want to send people somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's important for me to answer that question. You know, when students sometimes somehow get me by mistake or they're transferred to me
Mm-hmm.
in my office and I do get them, I say, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give you my personal number,
Mm-hmm.
office number to call me. I'm gonna give you my email address to contact me because I want to make sure that you're okay. If you
Right.
have any questions or concerns, you are free to do both. I don't
Yeah.
want to be that dean that push them off to somebody else.
Right.
I want to make sure that I answer your question, and I want to make sure that you're satisfied. And so you get a lot of students who say, "Hey, Dr. Farmer, I really do appreciate you
Mm-hmm.
reaching out to me to make sure that I've gotten what I need." And so a lot of times they email me, I'll make sure they get something, and I email them back and say, "Hey, everything okay? You need anything else?"
Mm-hmm.
Or just call me so we can work through and talk through any concerns. And you'll find out later on, maybe in our conversation, you understand why I do those things.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you this. So in all of your leadership roles, what are some key things that you learned about yourself? And then we're going to say, what did you learn about others?
Oh wow! The one thing I learned about myself is patience.
Mm, yeah.
Everything does not happen when you want it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes in these roles, you have to depend on others to get some of the things you want to get done.
Right.
And so patience is a key that I really had to learn to do.
Mm,
Because sometimes I want to get things done so fast that sometimes I forget that other people have things they have to do, and I can't just push and push and push and push. I have to have some patience. That's
right.
probably the biggest thing that I've learned.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the one thing I learned, and I know I had to learn, and I think I've done better with this, is listening.
Mm,
Sometimes in our listening process, we just hear, we don't listen. And so
there's
I've
a big
learned,
difference.
yes, that two-way communication thing is important.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that I think was key for me is I can't formulate a response before the conversation is over.
Yeah.
And sometimes we find ourselves that we formulated a response but after the first sentence. We need to take the time to listen to what someone is talking about and then formulate the response. And
Right.
then that's how you make things better within that conversation. You've taken the time to formulate a true response.
Yep. There's a big difference in listening and hearing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Big difference. Big difference. So, how have you developed strategies for effective leadership, or how how does someone develop strategies for effective leadership?
Well, I don't want to say that this is the, of course, I'm never going to say this is the right answer. No,
Well, how have you done it?
I often tell my students that, hey, if you don't believe I'm giving you the right response, let's work through this together
Right.
and to see if we can come up with the right response that you think you would need. I think it's important. Again, we talked about those listening skills. Oh my goodness, you can't as a leader, you have to be able to listen. Um,
Hmm.
the other thing is time management.
Oh yeah.
I have so many meetings on my calendar. I'm talking about 8 to 5 and after 5.
Hmm.
You have to have good time management. I think the very important thing that you have to do is set goals.
Mm.
So goal setting is very important. I try to make sure that I try to in everything that I do, I try to set some goals of where I want to go. Sometimes you have to let the wind take you there. You say sometimes you let the sail up on the sail on the
Hmm.
boat, and sometimes you just have to let the wind take you there when you set those goals.
Hmm.
Um, but I think one of the things that's very very important is finding a way to motivate others. Is key because sometimes you need that other to help you get things accomplished. And
Right.
so being able to motivate others is a very important tool.
But we're hold on. Let's talk about that. So, what are some ways that you have learned to motivate people that actually gets them engaged with whatever goal you have set?
Well, sometimes you have to find out what someone's interests, especially when it comes into the fraternity. You got to find out what
Mm.
their interests are. And so once you find out what their interests are, and a lot of times you don't have to do a whole lot of motivating because this is what that interests them, and they're gonna go ahead and do it because they're just interested in it in general.
Right.
Um, Piece of that is coaching.
Mm.
You know, piece of that is coaching your individuals on what they need to do to improve in a certain area. So you're kind of
Hmm.
motivating, you're coaching, you're saying, "Hey, here's some steps, 1, 2, 3." And again, I'm a very visual person, so a lot of times if I'm coaching someone, I may do a little diagram. I
Hmm.
may say 1, 2, 3 things that you can do. Um, but you're using those coaching skills, and we all have that in us. If you
Mm.
think about being a parent, you think about being an athlete. Most of us have done some type of sports. If you had kids, even if you had a pet, you think
Yeah.
about what do you do to motivate that pet or that child of yours to do certain things. A
Hmm.
lot of times, you're coaching them through them. You're giving them the tools that's going to help them succeed. And so
Hmm.
I'm the type of person that if you need a tool to help you succeed, let's find that. If you need a software, if you need some technology, if you need a new computer, whatever it may be, that tool that's going to help you succeed. That's what I want to be able to provide for you. And so that's a big important aspect of it as well.
Yeah, and you just touched on a little bit of, you know, as being an effective leader, it's counterproductive to put people where you need them
Hmm.
versus putting them where how, go let's go back over that again because I
Yeah,
forgot how you put it, but you were saying that you have to talk to them to find out what their interests are,
correct.
right? And so you get more productivity out of someone when you allow them to flourish in their interests
Hmm.
instead of sticking them somewhere out of their interests to fulfill your need. Let's talk a
Correct.
little bit about that because that happens a lot.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we all have talents.
Hmm.
And the key to that is finding the talent that they already have or they want to build upon.
Right.
And so even when I'm coaching students, and I have students come and they're getting ready to graduate at 22, 23. They probably did a couple internships and they probably don't like it. And they come in my
Mm-hmm.
office and some of them come to my office and they just boohoo, I don't know what I want to do, Dr. Farmer. And I just sit down with them. And I had one student, I want to go in the, I want to cook. I don't really want to do this business thing. My mom's making me do this business thing, but I really want to cook and blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, sometimes you got to get where you want to go. Get where you don't want to go. Go where you don't want to go to get where you want to go.
Mm.
And so we start talking about choices and we start thinking about, okay, well, what I said, have you been to a movie set before? Have you thought about going to a movie set? I said, do you know at the movie sets? I said, have you ever watched the credits at the end? And you see at the end they say catered by.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, do you know that they have caterers on
Oh,
movie
yeah.
sets?
Yep.
I said,
Mm-hmm.
because they have to eat, right? Or they have caterers for football teams because they have to eat.
Mm-hmm.
I said, sometimes this business degree may give you an avenue to get into to talk to some people who operate in that particular arena. And so what I try to do is just push them into an avenue that lets them think about other ways to get something that
Right.
otherwise they didn't think about. And so
Right.
I'm always trying to get them to understand that you have plenty of time to get it right. You're coming out as a 22-year-old, you've got this business degree, you want to do something else, but you have an opportunity to get what you want to get. So
Right. And they can build upon it.
yeah, we're coaching along the way. I want to open my own business, and I said, a lot of them entrepreneurs now, Tina, they want to do what you do.
Look, it's not for the faint at heart.
And so when I talked to them about that, I said, okay. I said, well, how about just going to work for somebody who in the business that what you want to do?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go sell hair, just hypothetically, hey, go work for a hair company that makes hair.
Right.
Find out how they do it. I say, but this degree is important because it makes you understand as a business major who's going to do your accounting,
Mm-hmm.
who's going to do your marketing, who's going to do your advertising, who's going to do your taxes, who's going to do your supply chain. You know, business teaches you all of that.
Right.
And so
Mm-hmm.
I say, go to somewhere else who's doing those jobs that you want to do, learn for them, and then go open your own business. And so, I just really try to encourage students to think outside the box. I think for my fraternity, um, in one of my meetings to my board, I said, I want to just think outside the box. Whatever the wildest dreams that we can think of, I want you to think about it. Can we do it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I know that's a long answer to a short. I
So,
tell my students I grew up missionary Baptist. I can talk forever.
well, one main skill that you must have as an effective leader is conflict management skills.
Ooh, my goodness, my goodness, my
So, my
goodness.
question to you is, how do you manage conflict?
You know, even at in the office, and even and when you're talking to over 3,500 brothers,
Mm,
um, and there's always gonna be some conflicts. No if and a but about it. And I'm one of those people that I think my leadership style is always gonna say, let's try to work it out.
mm-hmm.
It can't be that bad. Let's do what we can to make this better.
Right.
We talked about it the first time. We talked about it earlier. The first thing is listening. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta listen to both parties or even more parties to kind of get an understanding of what's going on. So that's important. Um, the other thing that you do, you can't let this linger on forever.
Mm,
As much as I want to be like, I'll get to it when I get to it. I really need to be saying, oh man, let me just curb it. As soon as the issue is brought up to the a boiling point, let me deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
I have to deal with it. You have to take immediate action because
Right.
if you don't, it's gonna spill over and spill over and spill over.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the next thing, I think, really the most important thing is focus on the issue, not the person.
Not the person. Say it again.
Focus on the issue, not the person.
Yeah.
Because um, you know, a lot of times when we do have these things going on, it's really about the person and not the issue.
Mm.
So you have to make sure that there's no personal attacks. You got to make sure that no one is saying bad things about anyone, but we're just talking about what is the issue at hand.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's back to active listening, where
Right.
we're having open-ended questions, open-ended responses, and try to create those discussions where it's not just a yes or no response,
Right.
because you have to get all the parties involved talking and
Right.
discussing. So when you ask questions, they need to be passive type questions where they can actually explain or talk a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's how you really start to get some of those answers um, taken care of. But you got to take immediate action without a doubt. If you don't, you're gonna be stuck with trying to do that.
It's funny how many times that when you have a conflict and you make all the parties come together at the table, and then they're in an environment where they have to listen to each other.
Mm-hmm.
It amazes me how a lot of times it's just a misunderstanding
Mm-hmm.
or
Oh my goodness.
misinterpretation, or the person was just off that day and then the information hit them and they responded in such a way, but it really didn't have anything to do with that person. I
It's
just felt that in learning about conflict management, it's just always best for me to, like you said, handle it quickly and to get all the parties to the table.
correct.
Yeah, because if you try to handle it with five different people with five separate phone calls, it doesn't work. And a lot of people are intimidated by that skill.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to prepare yourself for the blow up or to be able to handle that. But I've just noticed that, having to do some conflict resolution myself, when you get everybody to the table, it is amazing how everybody can, it can just de-escalate the situation and people can walk away, either laughing or, let's go out to eat. But it's just effective communication is so important.
Tina, everything that you said is spot on. I've recently had some, um, even for me, I don't know if it was a conflict, but the resolution was we just picked up the phone and had a conversation,
Yeah.
and so easy we came to a resolution. And sometimes that's all it takes is a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want the listeners to keep that in mind. A
Yeah.
conversation sometimes is all that's warranted.
Yeah. And you say you picked up the phone and you just had a conversation. And
Had a conversation.
sometimes, Eric, people don't even want to pick up the phone. They want to avoid it,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
And my thing is that if you don't want to take the necessary steps to resolve it, then you don't want to resolve.
Correct.
You know,
Correct.
that's
Hmm.
my thing. We have a question from a viewer.
Uh-oh.
Ruben Grant
Uh-oh.
asked this question. What's the most difficult situation you had to deal with in your leadership role? And no names.
Oh my goodness.
Thank
And
you,
so
Ruben, for tuning in.
thank you. And that question, um, you know, when I think about that, it's really about I can tell you this. Um, I think the most difficult is, and I hope everybody's not on here. The rumor mill and
Ooh,
the grapevine. and really trying to get people to understand that gossip is not good,
Yeah.
and how to deal with that. Um, and so, you know, that's probably one of the most difficult things that you have to deal with. You know, the rumor mill, the gossip in the office, or the grapevine in the office,
Hmm.
and trying to get people to understand that that's not good for productivity in the office.
Right.
That's not good for trying to accomplish anything once that those things start to happen. And so it's a lot of times I tell people, if you have it, if it's not to be shared, not meant to be shared, don't share it.
Mm.
That's probably the biggest thing that I have to deal with on a regular basis is just making sure that we have a level of respect for each other,
Hmm.
and creating that opportunity and atmosphere for a level of respect. And if you do that, you can get so much accomplished instead of having to worry about what people got to say about you.
Right. Can you give us one difficult situation that has come about, and then how did you deal with that situation, and what was the outcome?
Well, biggest thing for me is the misinterpretation of policy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a big policy person, and so we've had a meeting, and everybody was up in arms about something I was discussing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so we are governed by the Florida statutes. We're also governed by our board of trustees and their policies, and then for our faculty members, we're covered by what we call our collective bargaining agreement. And
Mm.
so it's easy for me to pull up those documents and say, this is what the policy states.
Right.
And usually when you do those type of things, you get an opportunity to say, you know, I'm not here trying to preach to you guys about something I'm not aware about. Usually I'm letting you know, well, not usually, I'm always letting you know what's coming from the policy. And
Right.
so what I do now to avoid that, because when I first got received the position,
Mm-hmm.
people like, you don't know what you're talking about. You just got here. And so now if I do something, I'll tag the policy or
Yeah.
statute, our collective bargaining agreement to that document, let them know, hey, I'm not making this up. This is where it came from.
Yeah. You tagged the document that they didn't read thoroughly.
Mhm. Because you know, if you don't, they will quote you and say, "Hey, Dr. Farmer said this in the meeting," and so I try to back up everything by a policy or a document that shows otherwise.
Right. Right. You said earlier that in your leadership role in the fraternity, that you had tried to document policies and procedures,
Hmm.
um, that can help. Um, what's the word?
Make sure we're operating
Yes,
efficient.
yes. So talk about this. I mean, answer this question. So how important is it that if you go into a leadership role and there aren't any, how important is it for you to gather a team of people, because you can't do it by yourself, and create that type of document?
Mm. Well, I'll go back to something I did some years ago for the region, and still operating if it very well.
Okay.
It was our travel policy.
Mm-hmm.
We traveled, but we at one point we didn't really have a governing document. We kind of just went off to some practice. Um, and because at the time I had just come off of I'm still wasn't working completely in policy, but I still knew policy very well and how to format a document and all those things. We created a live travel document that
Mm-hmm.
really taught us how to do everything from travel to booking your ticket to rental car to ride sharing, the do's and the don'ts, what you will get reimbursed for and what you won't get reimbursed for. That's the document that we started. I was able to kind of help draft, and then as a board, we finished. And we still use that document today
Right.
because, you know, as you're spending money in any organization, They want to know why you spending it and how you get a chance to get um, to spend that money, that particular amount of money,
Right.
and then while you get reimbursed for anything in particular. So I just wanted to make sure that we had a government document so when brothers ask,
Hmm.
we'll have something.
Right.
So that's just some of the things that I think is important in any thing that you do. We have governing documents across our organization that also allows us to understand what protocol looks like and what it should be.
Hmm.
But again, for me, on the university level, that's how we operate. That's how I prefer to operate. I don't want to get any. I don't want to do anything that's not allowing us to operate effectively. And I need a document associated with it. If we don't have one, I'm like, hey, we need to crease. We need to crease. And when we do, we need to make sure we include this. It
Hmm.
came from this pilot. It came from this document. But we need to make sure that we are doing these things because that's what drives what we do. And if we don't have it, we need to make sure that we do it. That's in everything. We when we download that app and we don't pay attention to everything that said that's gonna happen. That's
Hmm.
that's a governing document.
Right.
Even though we don't read it, we're just so happy to download the app. We just say agree.
Right.
It's the same concept.
Right. Exactly. I had a situation where um, there weren't any rules established. So people were just operating what I call willy nilly,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we came up to a situation, and I reached out to someone else in another chapter, and I was sharing with her the situation, and she said, "Oh, we had that same problem." She said, "What you need is an SOP." And I said, "What is an SOP?" And
Mm-hmm.
she said, "It's standard operating procedures." She
Correct.
said, "The bylaws tells you what to do, and your SOP tells you how to do it.
Correct.
You got to have a how with your what, because if not, you're going to be self-interpreting
Right.
the how. And once we put that document in place, we never now that particular issue we didn't have anymore, right? Because like you said, you have a governing document, and if anybody wants to challenge it, you say, "Well, this is what we all voted on, or this is," and it's written in a document. So
Mhm.
it's good to have that. You have to I call it guidelines. You have to have some type of guidelines to operate in, right?
You're so right. And that allows the organization to walk together and talk together.
Right.
And so when anything comes up, that's what it's for. It allows you to be on one accord.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and that's what I'm trying to get. That's what I try to do in everything that we do, whether it's work related, fraternity related. Just be on one accord.
Yep. So, next question. Should leaders have mentors?
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. On the fraternity level, I think I've had some great mentors from Brother Sidney McCrae to Brother Ray Smith, Brother Roy Edmonds, and so many brothers who that I just get an opportunity to walk with and talk with.
Right.
And I consider those as my mentors as well because I don't know all the answers. And I'm never going to tell somebody I know all the answers. And when I don't know, I'm just say, hey, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but on the university level as well, my dean has been a great mentor to me. I've had the opportunity to work with her in several different capacities. Um, and I consider some other colleagues that I work with as mentors as well. It's important to have them. I actually give an assignment to my students to select a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that assignment for them is to start off with five, narrow it down to three, and narrow it down to your top one or two, and then tell me why. And a lot of times the why is because they either know that person or that person is in a career field that they would like to be in.
Okay.
And so it's important that even as we as adults don't consider a mentor as a bad thing, but a good thing. So everybody should have one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Let me ask you this too. The one thing I've noticed, this is kind of crazy because I only knew you one dimensionally until this interview. I'm like, what? But one thing that I've noticed from afar is how the state of Florida transitions leadership. I had a conversation with one of the members of Sigma, and when I was talking to him about when he was in a leadership position, it's almost like deja vu to how you all operate currently. How important is it to continue to build upon the foundation? And you just talked about the importance of leadership, but it's almost like no one who becomes the new leader goes on a tangent. Let me just put it like that. I mean, because I've known you since 2011, and
Yeah.
so I've seen firsthand how Florida does business, right? And it's very impressive. It really is. And so, why is that?
Well,
What's the secret? Because I know
since,
it's got to be one
since
because
brother,
everybody else doesn't do this.
since
So
brother, since brother Reynolds in his car on this car, he know if he goes off on a tangent, he gets snatched up by some other brothers. No, no, but more than anything, you think about, I think the state of Florida has created a great roadmap,
mm,
and I think also what's important to that is, we are very supportive of our leaders and their roles.
mm,
We want to see them succeed. There is no animosity. Brother Edmonds used to always tell me that the next leader that comes in as state director for Florida should be elevating it and elevating it and elevating it.
right.
And I think that those that have come after each other has done that.
Mm-hmm,
Find a way to elevate what we have
right.
and not be afraid to take any challenges,
Mm-hmm,
not be afraid to think outside the box. And I think that's allowed the leaders in Florida to flourish. Um, they get a great support system. Um,
yeah.
they're not afraid to just let themselves be vulnerable for just a little while.
Right.
And we created a great roadblock, and they're following the roadblock, but what they're doing is they're enhancing, and
Right.
they're doing one hell of a job enhancing what was already started.
Right. Ruben said, "Leave it better than you found it."
That's exactly what it is. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it is.
I saw we were in St. Petersburg and St. Petersburg, I think it was St. Augustine, St. Petersburg. I think it was St. Petersburg one year. And Sidney McCray was out with me and kidding with me and stuff like that while you all were in meeting. And I asked him, I said, "Aren't you supposed to be in there?" And he said, "No." He said, "I come to the conferences to lend my support. I'm here to support whoever is in leadership.
Mm-hmm.
If they run into something, I'm around.
Mm-hmm.
But my job," he said, "is not to um, be so engaged that I'm disruptive." He
Right.
said, "My job is just to be a support
Yeah.
for them."
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I really, it kind of had me thinking because there's a lot of older brothers in the state of Florida that they say the same thing. They just come to support, and then if something happens and you need them, you need their knowledge, you need their guidance, they're there.
Yes.
But
Yes.
you all, it's amazing to me how the former leaders really, really, really support the e-board and whoever's in leadership. it just amazes me.
My job is to get out the way.
Right. Yeah.
You know, we've elected these leaders. If they need us, they'll come to us. They're doing a great job. So why should I even get in and say anything? So
Right.
they're doing the job already. And when you have that, your job is just to support. And when you have someone who's doing their job, doing a great job, your job is just to come and support. I'm staying out of the way as much as possible.
Right.
Oftentimes, Brother Grant will, I'm like, oftentimes, I even don't even want to be acknowledged. But, Brother Grant, he does it every time. No matter if I say, I'm just here. He's always going to make sure he acknowledges me. And I need to just shut up and just let him acknowledge me. But a lot of times, I just want to get out of his way. And
Yeah.
that's for any of my state directors. Like, hey, let me just get out your way. You do your thing. If you
Right.
need me, you'll call me.
Right. Well, we're at the end of the show, and I wanted
We're
to
having
see.
so much fun.
I told you it was fun. Before we leave, though, I would like for you to give advice to the aspiring leaders that are either on viewing live now or who will view the broadcast in the future.
Listen, I just want to say thank you so much, Tina. This has been outstanding. For any leader out there, again, listening is very, very important. And for me, you guys hear me say this all the time. I'm truly a servant leader, because I believe a servant leader has to be humble and they have to be protected, but they also have to make sure that those who do not have, that you work hard to make sure that they do have.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be a coach. You have to be motivating. You have to be a visionary. You have to make sure you set some goals so they can go out there and get them. Also, transformational means challenging and communicative. Democratic. I try to make sure that we handle things in a democratic way. That means I'm being supportive and I'm also being innovative. And so those are just some things I believe that's important. And just have to be humble.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get into this position to be in the spotlight, even though Tina's putting me in the spotlight today, y'all. I'm
I've
really,
been trying to get you on this show for a while.
she's been trying to get me here for a while. But it's not understand, guys, it's not about me, I read quite a few books for school and for classes. And I got this one. You have to there's a book called The 12 Immutable Rules of Leadership. I think this is a Maxwell book. And
Mm-hmm.
one of those laws called the law of sacrifice, the most important skill you got to have.
Mm.
And the law of sacrifice says a leader must give up to go up.
Wow.
And that resonates and stick with me, and everything that I do. You have to be willing to sacrifice. And I be quiet. I told you I'm missionary Baptist.
Now that's all right.
I
Look,
got
I'm gonna give you some extra minutes. I've been trying to get you on
I,
here.
I got one boss of mine's when I was moving up in state government, and I was telling her I wanted this position, and what does she consider me getting this position? And she said to me, she said, "You know something, Eric? If you really want this position, it's going to take more than 8 hours a day."
Mm,
And that stuck with me. And I talk to my students about this all the time. I said, don't start shutting down your computer at 4:45 every day. Get
mm,
ready to walk out the door. Be prepared to put in the extra time if you really want to work for it. Leaders rarely work 40 hours.
right.
They're putting in way more time. So as you think about that, I want you to consider that it takes more. You have to
Mm,
put in the work. You have to make the sacrifice.
wow. Well, thank you, Eric. I really appreciate you coming on the
Thank you.
show.
Thank
And
you.
I know that you are extremely busy, but you took some time out for little bitty old me
Yes. I want everybody to know you've been trying to get me to do this for at least a year and some change.
since I started.
Yeah, yes,
But the purpose of the show is to inspire and motivate people.
yes.
I tell people to tell their journey
Hmm.
because a lot of times people look at you and see you or meet you where you are currently,
Hmm.
but they don't understand the journey that you took to get to where you are. And I really appreciate you sharing that information. This entire interview was full of stuff I did not know because I only knew you one dimensionally.
Mm-hmm.
So my hope is that the viewers who currently know you, they totally see you in another dimension. So I really appreciate it. I
I
really
really appreciate you.
appreciate it. And the
I really
nuggets and
appreciate
the nuggets that you drop for effective leadership, I hope that people will replay this and download it and keep it, because you are someone that I have seen over the years use the skills and the different techniques that you spoke about, and I've seen it. I've seen how you have dealt with conflict. I've seen it firsthand, and it works. It really works.
you.
So I just really appreciate you taking time out to share your tips and information.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And you know I support you 100%.
Yes, you always have from day one.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, I just want to say thank you so much for staying a little bit longer and for tuning in tonight. Please like and share, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. We need your subscriptions and we need your input. Comment after the show, download it, replay it, send it to someone. But we really appreciate you viewing in tonight. And I will see you next Wednesday, same time, same place. You hold on, Errick.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.